So of course, one of the questions that I get asked quite often is, why Brazil? Why Brazil? The Maltese ask me that, but even ironically, even some of the Brazilians ask me that. Now, what interest does Malta have in Brazil? I mean, Malta is a very tiny country on the opposite side of the globe. Brazil, a very large country with a huge market. What could the two possibly have in common? Well, I mean, look at this expo. The third year now that SiGMA has had an expo here in São Paulo, Brazil, each year getting bigger and better. Malta and Brazil established a link, a bridge. We are now strengthening that bridge. We are broadening that bridge. We are paving the way for more commerce, for more interaction, more exchange to take place between our two countries. And it's a two-way street. We want not only the Maltese to come to Brazil, but we want also the Brazilians to come to Malta. And I'm pleased to say that that is happening now at a very rapid rate. In fact, it is exponentially increasing from month to month. The Brazilian presence in Malta now is very noticeable. And the impression of Malta here in Brazil, the profile of Malta here in Brazil, is growing at a very, very rapid rate. The fact that I am the first ambassador of Malta here in Brazil, opening up an embassy, this has captured the imagination of a lot of people. The Brazilians are very proud that another European Union country, the 24th out of the 27, is now opening up an embassy here, strengthening the links between our two areas. Last year, we had, after almost 27 years of negotiations, the signing of the EU-Mercosur agreement to make trade between Brazil and indeed many countries here in Latin America and the European Union much more easy to undertake. Ironically, when somebody else is trying to increase tariffs, Brazil and the European Union have found a way to reduce their tariffs. So,
fantastic. And also, I think I'm an English person who lives in Brazil. I've lived here for 15 years, and I have a great love for the country, obviously. But I think that it must be so exciting for you to see. São Paulo is the engine of Brazil in terms of commerce, unquestionably. And to see a Maltese company lifted the iGaming platform in Brazil to such heights must be very exciting for you to see, I imagine.
well, of course, iGaming is still very new here in Brazil. It was only last year that the government legislated to introduce iGaming. But of course, there is still the very hard road of implementing the regulations. And that is a struggle. In Malta, we have 25 years experience with iGaming regulations. I mean, Malta is the iGaming capital of Europe. And we're looked up to, as far as iGaming is concerned, not only by Europe, but many other sectors of the world as well. And SiGMA is carrying that message to many parts of the world. I mean, already this year, SiGMA has had expos in Cape Town and in Dubai, and now they're here in São Paulo. The next one's going to be in Manila, then a mega expo in Rome of some 35,000 delegates, and of course Malta, and also seeking to expand to Sri Lanka and opening up offices in places like Serbia and Singapore. I mean, it's just never ending. It's all rapidly accumulating and going from strength to strength. And it's amazing when you think that, a small country that started out with one person, the founder, Iman Pulis, giving one conference on iGaming is now a global concern of this magnitude.
It's hugely impressive, really hugely impressive. But you spoke about the need for regulation here in Brazil, which indeed there is. And I mean, as we're very aware of the strength of illegal gaming in this country, it's a big problem. Is there advice and support which SiGMA can give to the Brazilian industry to help that move towards regulation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I very strongly believe in that. And in fact, in my very short speech this morning at the opening ceremony of this expo, I made precisely that point, that we have the 25 years experience, and I'm sure that Malta would be delighted to lend its experience and its knowledge in relation to the framing of regulations to the Brazilian government in what it is doing. I mean, last Friday, I organized a lunch in Brasilia. Now, Brasilia is the political capital of Brazil, but it's not the commercial hub by any means. Our aim there was to attract, obviously, other ambassadors because we wanted to spread the word to other nations, but also legislators and regulators. And I had a large number of lawyers who attended that lunch. Now, the main reason why they came to that lunch is because a substantial part of their business is now in advising deputados and advising senatores about the regulation, the implementation of regulations for iGaming. And also, of course, these lawyers are very interested in the prospect of issuing licenses for iGaming in the iGaming industry. And that's why they were there. And it was a very beneficial, very fruitful lunch. There was a lot of talk. We also had a number of investors there and a number of financiers there. So it's growing.
Yeah.
Malta's word is spreading. I mean, our profile is growing at a very rapid rate, which I am very happy with, and I'm very pleased to do, because I see that as being a very important part of my role as the ambassador of Malta to Brazil. But also the message is being received, and even more gratifying is that message is not only being received, but is being warmly welcomed.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Looking ahead, given the fact that Brazil is receiving great advice and great help from Malta and from SiGMA, what kind of strategies do you think that Brazil needs to create, needs to implement in order to create a competitive and sustainable gaming environment, iGaming environment?
Well, I think Imam Poulos this morning in his speech at the official opening pointed the path in the right direction. What Brazil needs to do is to be ahead of the game. It needs to be receptive to good advice. It needs to be able to implement that advice rapidly, and it needs to be able to be ahead of the illegal element. The illegal element exists. There's no denying that. And I often get asked as an ambassador, why am I supportive of iGaming? Because it's seen many quarters, of course, as not being a very acceptable kind of industry. But my answer is very, very straightforward. If we don't have legally regulated, transparent laws, then that leaves the vacuum for the illegal element to come in. Now, we'll never ever, I don't believe that we'll ever eliminate totally the illegal element, but we can crowd them out. We can crowd them out by making available a legal way, a transparent way of betting. We're not going to eliminate betting. I mean, it's happened since the dawn of time, and it will always happen. The important thing is to make sure that people do not become vulnerable to that we have the transparency to ensure that this industry can be undertaken in a legal, transparent way that is going to protect the vulnerable, that is going to look after those who may be addicted. And of course, coupled with this introduction of iGaming is the introduction of the other side of the coin as well. The medical and the psychiatric and the psychological groups that come along and that are able then to cater for the vulnerable people who previously, would have been fallen through the cracks. We wouldn't have known about them. Now we have probably an opportunity to identify them and to be able to direct them to some sort of help. And I think that's very important as well. We've got to look at that aspect.
But do you think that that is something that SiGMA can help Brazil with as the market here grows?
Well, look,
I mean, with advice and knowledge and so on.
SiGMA is a responsible company that is aware of its responsibilities to humanity. It's introducing, of course, a an activity in a legal and transparent way. But it also has a Sigma Foundation, and I get quite emotional when I hear Eamon Poulos talk about his aim of helping 1 million people, 1 million people who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to experience a better life. Yesterday, we went to see the opening of a new combat school supported by the Sigma Foundation. Children coming in off the streets, being given an opportunity to do something constructive with their lives, um, being taken into a form of discipline, a form of understanding, a community relationship, showing responsibility towards one another, responsibility towards their families and themselves as well. I think this has got to be commended. And it's not just happening here in Brazil; it's happening all around the world. We saw instances of, for example, what the Sigma Foundation is doing in Ethiopia with children there who are very, very disadvantaged indeed. And I strongly believe that the founder, Iman Poulos, will achieve his dream, will achieve his ideal of helping at least 1 million people make their way towards a better life.
That's fantastic. That's a wonderful ambition to have, really. And here in Brazil, I think that there is a need for help in that region because, we not only have many underprivileged children here and individuals, but we also have the ever-present pressure of gang warfare,
Yeah.
ganglands, stuff that draws the children into that to their world. And so any help to keep them protected from that is fantastic.
Well, poverty exists everywhere, and vulnerable people are everywhere, and there are no more people more vulnerable, perhaps, than children who come from, dysfunctional families and disjointed communities. Vulnerable women, also in our society. Um, it's easy to turn a blind eye and pretend they don't exist. How many times do people sort of go through and see children in the streets, and obviously they've got nowhere else to go, and they're ignored. Um, I think to provide an opportunity to help those is an admirable thing. Of course, we're not going to be able to help everyone, but if Sigma can fulfill its dream, its ambition of helping 1 million people, well, that's 1 million people in the world better off.
That's wonderful. It would be absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful ambition to have.
Mm.
And finally, I'd like to ask you, with your focus on commerce and such like in the relationship, the commercial relationship, potential commercial relationship between Malta and Brazil, how do you see Sigma leading the way towards other commerce-based relationships between the two nations?
Well, I mean, being an ambassador is a multifaceted task. I spoke before about the fact that there's obviously the political diplomacy, there's international diplomacy, which is very important, but there's also the commercial diplomacy as well. Sigma is leading the way in many ways, but it's not the only company that's making inroads into the commercial links between Malta and Brazil. We have, for example, the tourist industry growing at an immense rate. Well, now, as I said before, that Brazilians are now very visible in Malta. They weren't visible 5 years ago, but they are visible there now, and particularly in certain areas around Valletta and around some of the popular suburbs of St Julian's and Sliema. We're close to the coast, and they're there in quite big numbers. Young Brazilians having a great time. But also we have our English language schools, and of course the learning of English is a great aim of many, many Brazilians. It's a great ambition for them. And we provide the most competitive and among the best English language schools in the world. Maltese and English are our two official languages. And Brazilians are now discovering that our schools are very competitive and they're also very accessible. So we've got those businesses going on as well. And also, there's the issue of trade. I mean, I mentioned the EU Mercosur agreement before.
Yes.
Brazil trades with Europe, but not through the Mediterranean. Most of the trade of Brazil goes through the northern part of Europe, through ports like Rotterdam and Antwerp. No Brazilian ship comes closer in the Mediterranean than the port of Valencia on the west coast of Spain. And I've been visiting the various ports and just saying to them to venture a little further into the ports of Malta or even perhaps into the ports of southern Italy. There are vast opportunities then that can open up in the south of Europe, in the north of Africa, and even into the eastern side of the Mediterranean with countries like Greece and Turkey, Egypt, and so forth. So far, the eastern side of the Mediterranean receives most of its trade coming through the Suez, but there are opportunities also to come through. So this, of course, is not going to happen in 5 minutes, nor in a short period of time. But unless one sows the seed, then nothing will germinate. And the fact that these ships or the trade links between Brazil and Europe go through the ports I've just mentioned is a historical thing, because obviously the links from Brazil with Europe have been through Portugal and Spain mostly, and then along the coast of the Atlantic. The Mediterranean has been like a lake there into which they haven't ventured. And I'm encouraging people to undertake feasibility studies to look at the economics of it all and to see that in Malta, we are a great place for transshipment. We are a huge port. We've been a maritime entity now for thousands of years. They're also establishing an aviation hub that's going to be able to transport stuff quickly and efficiently to many parts of Europe. We have great links with the major airports of Europe, and there are massive opportunities there, which Brazilians are not aware of. Again, it's a matter of raising awareness, it's a matter of lifting the profile, it's a matter of people sitting down and starting to look at the facts and figures, start to look at the bottom line and the balance sheet. That's what will be the major convincer.
Well, good luck with that. It sounds really exciting, actually. And as I told you, I have a great affection for Malta, so I'm very pleased to hear this link between the two nations.
Well, of course, we're still very much in infancy, but it's growing at a very rapid rate. And the rate at which it is growing is accelerating immensely. And everywhere I go, every time I have the opportunity to mention Malta, people stop and listen, and then a talk begins. And from the talk emanates action, and that's what we want, action.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.